They played it only once, for over 40 years, not in stadiums, not at festivals, not even once on tour. Not because fans hated it. In fact, some diehard fans swear that it is one of their most underrated songs ever. So why did it completely disappear from their set lists? The truth behind its disappearance may surprise you, and it's not just about the music. If you want to learn more, stay longer. The song in question, Overdose, tucked away on AC/DC's 1977 album, Let There Be Rock. It's a track that somehow manages to slip under the radar, even among longtime fans. It's got all the grit and swagger you'd expect from the Bon Scott era, bluesy riffs, a slow-burning build-up, and that raw, unfiltered energy that defined AC/DC's early years. But despite being one of the more emotionally heavy songs in their catalog, Overdose was never played live, not once. Not on the Let There Be Rock tour. Not in the years that followed. Total silence. That's unusual for a band like AC/DC. Even lesser-known tracks like Dog Eat Dog or Gone Shootin' got some stage time back in the day. So why not Overdose? It wasn't a throwaway track. Critics have pointed out its eerie mood, its haunting build-up, and its brutally honest lyrics as some of the most daring the band ever recorded. Some fans even consider it a hidden gem, with a tone that set it apart from the rest of the record. And it's not like the album didn't matter. Let There Be Rock was pivotal. It marked the band's full dive into their signature hard rock identity. For a track on such an important album to be ignored for decades, that's not an accident. Something about Overdose made it the black sheep, even among deep cuts. But the reason why might have more to do with what came after the song was released than the song itself. AC/DC has one of the most stacked catalogs in rock history. Back in Black, Highway to Hell, Thunderstruck, You Shook Me All Night Long. The list doesn't end. And when your set list has to please tens of thousands of screaming fans at every show, there's only so much room to work with. That's the reality. Every lesser-known song played live means sacrificing a hit. And for AC/DC, that's just not a gamble they're willing to take. The band's typical live show runs about 20 songs. Now imagine trying to fit decades of fan favorites into that space. Naturally, the big singles win. Every single time. Songs like Overdose, which was never released as a single, never charted, and never got a music video, simply can't compete. It becomes a numbers game. And deeper cuts like this get quietly pushed to the back of the shelf. Fans have noticed it for years. Forums and comment sections are filled with posts like, "Why don't they play more Bon-era deep cuts?" And "I'd lose my mind if they played Down Payment Blues or Overdose just once." But the harsh truth is, bands like AC/DC are built on momentum. Their concerts are a high-voltage sprint, not a deep dive into forgotten gems. If the crowd doesn't explode in the first 3 seconds of a riff, it's out. So maybe Overdose didn't make the cut, not because it was bad, but because it was too buried to survive in a set list made for maximum firepower. If you want more videos like this, or other deep dives into music and culture, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out my page for more content. Thanks for watching. To understand why Overdose vanished, you have to look at where AC/DC was during that time. And it wasn't all headbanging and highway anthems. The late 70s were raw, chaotic, and at times dangerously unstable for the band. Bon Scott was living life on the edge, and Malcolm Young, often seen as the band's quiet backbone, was battling serious issues of his own, especially with alcohol. Behind the scenes, things were spiraling, and you can feel that weight in the music from this era. Songs like Overdose weren't just rock tracks, they were warnings wrapped in guitar riffs. Let There Be Rock was a turning point in AC/DC's sound, but it was also the beginning of a darker period. There was tension between keeping their reckless, outlaw identity and staying alive long enough to see any success. And Overdose, with its gloomy, obsessive tone, may have hit a little too close to home, especially for Bon and Malcolm. It wasn't just a song about losing control, it was about losing control. Years later, as the band shifted toward a more polished, stadium-filling sound, those gritty, emotionally heavy tracks started getting left behind. It's no coincidence that most of their live sets began focusing on the biggest crowd pleasers, the songs that felt good, that hit hard and that didn't remind anyone of the darkest nights on the road. But the band's evolving sound wasn't the only issue. There was something else holding them back from ever bringing Overdose to the stage, something more physical and far more personal. Even if the band wanted to play Overdose live, there's a solid chance it just wasn't realistic, especially after Bon Scott's death.
His voice had a certain unhinged grit, almost like he was teetering between swagger and collapse.
It was chaotic, and it worked perfectly for darker tracks like Overdose. But when Brian Johnson stepped in after Bon's death, the vibe shifted.
Brian's voice had more of a piercing shriek, great for arena anthems, but a very different beast when it came to moody, slow-burning tracks.
Some fans point to other songs from the same era that disappeared from live sets for similar reasons. Shake a Leg, off Back in Black, was only played once and never again. Why? Because it was brutal on Brian's voice. The same likely applies to Overdose. The drawn-out verses, the slow pacing, the vocal control required to hold back and then explode, that's not easy to replicate night after night, especially when you're also belting out Thunderstruck and Back in Black in the same set. And AC/DC's live shows have always been about energy. No breaks, no dips.
A song like Overdose, with its brooding atmosphere, would slow the whole thing down. It doesn't fit the machine gun rhythm of an AC/DC concert.
They're in the business of setting crowds on fire, not dragging them through a swamp of emotional sludge.
But even with all that said, there's still one more piece of the puzzle, a reason fans don't talk about as much, because it's not about performance, it's about perception.
And that's where things start to get murky. Ask any hardcore AC/DC fan about Overdose, and you'll get a different answer every time. Some say it's one of the most underrated songs in the band's catalog, dark, hypnotic, and brutally honest.
Others admit they barely remember it at all, but one thing nearly all of them agree on, AC/DC doesn't do deep cuts, at least not anymore.
Over the years, fans have flooded forums and Reddit threads with the same question. Why won't they touch songs like Overdose, Night Prowler, or What's Next to the Moon? And the answers aren't always technical. Many point to the band's laser-focused obsession with energy and crowd response. As one user put it bluntly,
if they dropped TNT from the set list, the audience would riot.
The band seems to agree. In rare interviews, Angus Young has hinted that while they love their older material, the crowd decides what stays.
People come to hear the big ones, he once said. If we mess with that, we're asking for trouble.
It's not just about playing music, it's about managing expectations. When you've got a fan base that spans generations, you have to deliver the classics.
So even if Overdose was a personal favorite within the band at one point, it was likely shelved because it didn't match the AC/DC brand. Loud, fast, electric. And let's be honest, this isn't a band that wants to get introspective on stage. But not every fan theory is so straightforward. Some believe Overdose was buried for a much darker reason, and this is where things get uncomfortable. Some songs disappear from a band's set list quietly. Others seem to vanish for reasons no one wants to talk about. Overdose might be the latter. Over the years, the song has gathered a quiet cult following, not just because of its sound, but because of what some fans think it represents. With lyrics that spiral through obsession, heartbreak, and self-destruction, it's been interpreted by some as a cry for help, or even a reflection of the band's darker personal moments. Bon Scott's death in 1980, just a few years after Overdose was released, added fuel to that speculation. He died from alcohol poisoning after a night out, and fans have long connected his reckless lifestyle to songs like this one. Some believe Overdose hit too close to reality. There's also an eerie coincidence in how prophetic the lyrics feel. Lines about slipping deeper, losing control, and being consumed by someone or something you can't let go of. It's the kind of song that becomes harder to listen to once you know how Bon's story ended. Whether or not the band ever publicly linked the song to that part of their history, it's possible they made a silent decision to leave it behind. Even the name, Overdose, feels too raw, too heavy. In a post-1980 world after Bon's passing, maybe it just didn't sit right anymore. Officially, they've never addressed it. No comment, no explanation. And that silence? It only makes the mystery louder. But here's the real question. After all these years, could Overdose ever make a comeback? AC/DC has built a legacy on volume, grit, and unapologetic power. Their set lists are stacked with anthems that get stadiums shaking and hearts pounding. But somewhere in the shadows of that thunderous legacy lies a song they never gave the spotlight, a song too dark, too raw, or maybe just too real. Overdose didn't vanish by accident. Whether it was the painful timing of Bond's death, the shift in vocal style, or the haunting weight of the lyrics themselves, something about that track made it untouchable. And for over 4 decades, the band has kept it locked away. No live performance, no tribute, not even a mention. Could they ever bring it back? Technically, yes. They've made surprise moves before, festivals, one-off shows, even fan-requested deep cuts. But emotionally, that's a different story. Some songs carry more than just chords and words. They carry memories, regrets, and ghosts that don't belong under stadium lights. Maybe Overdose is meant to stay in the dark corners of the record, a time capsule from a heavier era. And maybe that's exactly why it still hits so hard today. Not because it was overplayed, but because it never got the chance. And that silence, it speaks louder than any encore. If you want more videos like this or other deep dives into music and culture, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out my page for more content. Thanks for watching.